All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's live Q&A show. I'm your host, Jake Saratsian. Maybe joining me in a little bit will be Lenny. He's on his way into the office. He had to pick up actually a prop for a video we're about to film right after this. So let me know in the meantime where you are tuning in from and whether or not this is your first weekly live Q&A session with us. I'm curious to see if there's anyone new joining, and what's really fun is I see a lot of people typically come back each week, and so it's great to see you guys in the comments or in the chat. So let me know, where you're tuning in from, and what's going on in your part of the world. We'll get started here in just a little bit. I'd like to give a little more time for people to come on in, as well as for me to catch my breath. I was running in here to put on my Jungle Scout shirt and get this started in time for you guys. So this is going to be a good one. We had a lot of pre-submitted questions from last week's live Q&A session. So first off, thank you so much for really engaging with us in these basically these calls live, but also afterwards, asking your questions in the comments. That's the best way for us to see your questions. And then we will respond to your comment on YouTube, but it's nice to bring them over here and give you a deeper dive on the video. So yeah, let us know where you're tuning in from. Like I said, Lenny might be joining here shortly, but we'll get started probably without him until he does come in. So yeah, I see a few people joining. Awesome. Let's see something real quick. We'll get started here in just a moment. Cool. Just making sure things are good on my end technically. I'm not going to run into any issues. Cool. Awesome. We have Poland in the house, London in the house. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining today. Also, if you would like, you can pre-submit your questions now in the chat. We're going to start with the pre-submitted questions from last week's video. And then at the end of that, we'll make sure to get to your live questions. And then any questions we can't get to, we'll bring over into next week's live Q&A session. Awesome. Reviews with thee. Welcome. I'm glad this is your first live with us. I'm curious how you found out about the Jungle Scout channel. So let me know in the chat below before we get started. But thanks for joining us today. I got Afghanistan here. Awesome. Great. We have people from everywhere, just like we typically do every year. So every week. This is awesome. Awesome. Yeah, Bart, you just subscribed to Jungle Scout. Awesome. That's great to hear. Awesome. Great. Yeah, we're going to do a lot of demos today. I have a lot of cool things I want to share with you on a screen share, so I'm excited to do that. And then who knows where this will take us. Maybe we'll dive more into some Jungle Scout tools. Maybe we'll dive into some more Seller Central stuff, or whatever is on your mind. We have basically like an hour and a half you can expect that this would run for. It just depends on how much is going on. And we do have a project after this we need to film, but I think an hour and a half will probably be the duration today. So it's definitely a lot of time. So what I'm going to do is, let's see here. Awesome. Yep. So what we do after the live Q&A is we'll cut this whole intro to make it easy for someone else to watch that didn't join live, or for you guys to rewatch the replay. So I'm going to do a little intro to that video, but will eventually be the start of the video here. All right. Hello and welcome back to this week's live Q&A. My name is Jake, and I'm going to be answering all your questions about selling on Amazon live here in our Austin, Texas studio. So let's get right into it. But first, if you want to get your questions answered, you can always drop them in the comments below. And what we do each week is we take those questions from the comments and then use them in our pre-submitted question field, which is what I'm going to go through now. But then after we get through all the pre-submitted questions from last week's video, then we're going to go and answer all the questions live for everybody in the chat. And we do this every Thursday. If you're looking to join us next week, come around the channel around the same time. It's 11 a.m. Central Time, so our time here in Austin, Texas, every Thursday to get your questions answered. So let's go ahead and dive into our first pre-submitted seller question. And that question is, how much money do you lose if a customer returns a product? I love this question because for new sellers or prospective sellers, you might think it's just you lose all of the money. And do you lose most of it? I'll show you here in a second exactly how much. But that's something I had to learn by starting on Amazon myself, is exactly how that works. And so I have a screen share I wanted to pull up here and show you what it looks like for a product that we actually had returned by a customer pretty recently. Actually, what was this? 2 days ago, 3 days ago. So this right here is the order page. So what I wanted to show you, and real quick, how I got here, you can go to your orders, manage orders, and then from there you just select, or I'm sorry, I actually did that wrong, or I said that wrong. You would go to your payments, payments. Let me just do this real quick for you. Payments, you go to transaction view, you come down here and you click refund. Click update, and you'll see all your refunds here. So I'm just gonna click on one over here that we got a couple days ago. Tell Amazon they're doing a great job. And now I just want to show you kind of what this looks like. So let me back up real quick and go to the order that this customer placed with us. And I'll actually hide my screen share here so you can see what I'm doing more. And I'll zoom in to help this make more sense. So this is when our customer ordered a product from us a couple days ago. Oh, nope, that's the wrong date. Up here, transaction date. So 2/10 of this year, they bought a product from us and they paid us $36.99 up here. Now, at that point, Amazon also gave us $2.22 in taxes. So that total that we got back was about $40 almost, except we don't actually get that tax money. Amazon keeps it. So they just take that tax money back. And what that leaves us with is, after our FBA pick and pack fee, so essentially your fulfillment fee of $7.33 for us, and our referral fee, which is 15% of our sales price, which ended up being about $5.55 there, we got back about $24. So that's actually what we put in our pocket. Now, of course, we have other costs that we need to consider here. So there's, your cost of goods sold. There's basically a lot of other costs that would go into that, like advertising, even storage will come in there. But for what we got back is about $24. Now let's go to the return here, which I'm just going to the associated transaction. So Amazon's basically saying this is the return right here for this product. And what it looks like is Amazon gave the customer back our sales price of $37. They gave them back the tax that they took. So the customer got back $39. Then for us, they gave back that tax. So they just carry that tax back over to us. So we get that refund there. And then over here, that referral fee on the item price. So 15% of our price, Amazon paid us back. So you'll probably have noticed the only cost that we didn't get back right now is the pick and pack fee. So the fulfillment cost. And that's because when a customer returns your product, you only get back the referral fee. Except the little caveat there is underneath here is $1.11, and that's a refund administration fee. How that works is you can just click on here to find out more information. Is Amazon is going to charge you for a refund, essentially, either $5 or 20% of your referral fee, whatever is lesser. And so in our case, we got charged 20% of the referral fee. If I just go back here to show you that. So our referral fee, $5.55, 20% of that is this amount here. So we essentially lost $32. But remember, we made $24 here. So we really only lost that pick and pack fee plus this $1.11 as the refund administration fee. So hopefully that makes sense. You essentially, long story short, would forfeit or lose the pick and pack FBA fulfillment cost fee. So yeah, you do lose quite a bit there, but you don't lose it all. And that's how it looks. Hopefully that made sense and was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments if you need more clarification on that. I can always come back to this at any time. That's how I'll move on to our second pre-submitted question. Is the FBA fulfillment cost fixed, or is it different for every sale? And again, I'll show another screen share here, this time showing you our pick and pack referral fee, I keep mixing those two today, the fulfillment cost. So here is one of our products here. I'm just gonna click on calculate revenue so I can see it and show you guys here. We're paying about $7.33, and that is fixed. The only time that would change, and we can see here exactly how Amazon is calculating it, which is basically just the size of our product and then the tier. The only time this would change is if for some reason we send more inventory into Amazon and the weights and dimension changes. So for some reason, perhaps you changed your packaging or your supplier did something a little bit different to where now your product is a little bit bigger and therefore it's going to be more expensive. So it should in theory be fixed. The only time though it would change is when something happens with your size of the product or the size of your product in the packaging. And so sometimes what will happen though is Amazon will incorrectly scan it wrong. If you catch that, which is just a hard thing to kind of catch, but if you are able to catch that, Amazon will give you that money back to you. So they'll give you a reimbursement there. But to answer the question directly, it is a fixed cost and it shouldn't change. Again, assuming your product actually doesn't change the size. All right, so let's move on to our third question here. What are the best tips for doing my Amazon FBA taxes? Now, this is a good one. It's also very timely because it's tax season right now, and I actually just did my taxes. I submitted them actually this past weekend, and I wanted to show you how I did that and just what I personally would recommend doing, or I should say what I have done, my personal experience. So what you really need to do is essentially just have a profit and loss sheet somewhere. So in Jungle Scout, you can actually just use the P&L statement that's in here. And if your tax calendar year is what most sellers are, which is just the full calendar year, so in this case, all of 2023, you can put the date range up here. And really what the IRS wants to know is how much did you make? So right here are revenue, about $200-something thousand. And that's our sales. So they need to know that. And then they need to know, all right, what were your expenses? And so for us, we have two types of expenses. We have cost of goods sold, which is the cost of our inventory, basically getting it, the cost of everything, getting it to the customer. And then we also have operating expenses. The only, I guess for us at least, the big one here are PPC fees. And there are also seller fees that count here as well, like storage would count as an operating expense, an operating expense. And we have just a few other things here that would count as a seller fee. So that does go under operating expense. But in a nutshell, all the IRS wants to know is what you made in revenue, what were your costs, so cost of goods sold and your operating expenses, and then what did you actually make from that? So let me hide myself here. And so right down here, you can see our net profit and our net margin. So this is essentially what they want to know. Now, this is an easy way to get it. You can take a screenshot of this and put it in whatever software you're using to run your taxes. Me personally, I've used TurboTax, and I'm somebody that just would pay somebody to do it for me always. And so I've paid their highest plan. It's called the full service. It's about $300-something. That might sound a lot for someone that knows how to do their taxes or wants to do their taxes and save money there, which you certainly can do, but I'm just not one of those people. I'd love to just pay somebody and have peace of mind and just save a whole bunch of time doing it. So I paid about $350 for the full service one. You could probably do a middle tier for I think $100. But that's essentially what they needed to know is this. And they just filled out my tax form with most of this information, or all of this information really. Now, if you didn't want to use Jungle Scout, or maybe just have cost in different places, you can use a document like this. So I've basically have submitted something like this in the past. And I've gone ahead here and just changed the numbers for what my actual business were, just to not reveal too much personal information. But this is essentially what you need to do. It's essentially a P&L sheet, but in Excel. If you have any income outside of the business, you put that here. This is basically your gross sales. Then you have your cost of goods, your operating expenses, exactly what we just showed in Jungle Scout, you can have here. And that's another way to send your P&L to whoever's doing your taxes. Now you notice here, I put a document column here of where to find these forms. The main forms you need on Amazon are the 1099K form and then some sort of expenses form. Now the 1099K form is in your tax document library. You find that by going down here to reports, tax document library, and you'll find it right here. It should say download. I don't have the permissions to download it for our account because we have a lot of people or users on our account. So I just don't have that permission, but it should say download here. That will show you your revenue and how much you made minus all of your cost of goods sold. The next thing you need to do is grab a basically an expense report. And you can do that by going to your payments here And yeah, once you go to payments, you click payments, and then you go to this report repository. From there, you'll download the same thing, like a yearly summary report. So make sure you select summary. You have the date range for the whole year, and it'll pop up something like this when you download it. This is essentially that P&L sheet where you see all your revenue or your income, your expenses. This is just like transfers, is how much was actually put in your bank account, even though it doesn't account for cost of goods sold. And then below that is taxes, but you don't have to worry about that typically because, at least in the US, Amazon is collecting that for you. So in a nutshell, that's how to do your taxes. Or I guess maybe that's some of my tips that I can share with you from fresh memory here. But yeah, Lenny's here. Are you ready to jump in? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just waiting until the end of the question. Hi, everyone. Jumping in here a few minutes late, but I'm excited to check out your questions.
Yes, I was just... you heard, but yeah, doing some tax questions. So
always fun.
Yeah,
very relevant right now, though.
Very relevant. And actually, I'm gonna toss whatever this next question is to you. So let's see what it is. Oh, cool. What was your average monthly PPC spend 3 months after launch? Do you remember, Lenny, exactly what it was?
Oh, for the washable pee pads for dogs?
I assume.
That's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head as a kind of a general take, and I would typically run a campaign at $20 to $30 per day, and maybe a couple of campaigns, so I might be spending $50 to $60 per day. Specifically for the washable pee pads for dogs, we might have been running it a little bit higher than that.
Yeah.
I know in the very beginning, in the first week, we were running like hundreds of dollars per day to like really push it.
Yes.
But 3 months after launch, I'm sure we probably pulled back, but I don't know if you know the real numbers.
I have to go back to it, but I wanted to show this video. If, after this video or after this live, just go to our channel and search for this video, Is Amazon FBA Worth It in 2023? And you'll see kind of like our whole breakdown over our first year. And this is actually a good shot here that I wanted to pause on, because this is our total net profit over time over the first year. And you can see here in the first 3 to 4 months, we actually lost a lot of money because we were advertising so heavily and reducing our price to get sales out the door. But then after month 4, we ended up eventually turning profitable in the next 6 months, as you can see here. So what I think, Lenny, we did was, if I remember correctly, we started advertising on Amazon right when our product launched. We spent probably like maybe $50 to $100 a day. So I think it was pretty minimal or conservative, I should say. But then we got a badge. It was like a new releases badge. The product sold very well at first because our price point was insanely low to where we were losing money. We also had coupons, or a coupon on it, so that brought the price down even more and got some extra coverage on Amazon search results. And so because of that, we got a new releases badge. Once that happened, our ads were being exhausted, and basically the budget was being hit by like 10 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. And so we just increased it to what you just said, about like a couple $100 a day. And then we eventually sold out. So I can't remember the exact total dollar amount, but we went from like $50 a day to maybe like $200 to $300 a day. But that did sell us out. So that was our strategy. And it was probably, I think, the same strategy when we got back in stock. We basically just turned on ads very slowly at first, and then eventually ramped it up and just never looked back from there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other general pointers to just help anyone else out there. First up, I'd say that advertising is just pivotal. It's very important to, particularly to launch a product. It'd be difficult unless you've got your own means of driving traffic or a huge audience or something. I would say 99% of people, would want to utilize advertising, particularly for launch. It's something that I would utilize after launch and pretty much like have ads running all the time. The amount of budget and how much you spend on that can vary. There might be times where you pull back because you want to be more profitable, or you're more aggressive because you want to get more sales or reviews or trying to grow your search ranking. But the common thing is I would typically always have ads running. And then, you're just kind of managing those campaigns and either easing off or, ramping them up. So I don't know, maybe that's a tidbit that might be helpful for anyone else just in general.
Good question. And I realized, actually I skipped over a question. So let me go back and answer this question. I thought it was a really good one. What is one thing I should do daily as an Amazon seller? Is there anything that comes to mind, Lenny, that you think, I mean, just when you wake up in the morning or, what do you do as a seller when you wake up?
I mean, what I did religiously for probably like a couple of years was like checking my sales. I think that's probably something that most Amazon sellers do. After probably a couple of years, I sort of eased off of that because it almost felt like an addiction. But there is like a lot of value in it, whether it's every day or checking in every few days or weekly, like having some sort of regular cadence of seeing where your sales are at and just kind of keeping, doing a pulse check of where your business is at is a good idea. It helps you catch if something, it doesn't happen all that often, or at least it didn't happen often to me, but there were times where something was wrong, where suddenly like sales had dropped and I had to investigate and there was something wrong with the listing where suddenly it wasn't ranking for different keywords, and I had to investigate and reach out to seller support. And I think those situations are pretty rare, but I caught it because I was keeping a close eye on my sales. I mean, I don't know if that probably seems like an obvious one. I'm trying to think what else you would want to do on a daily basis.
I think one thing I would add too is you can check advertising every day. That's certainly something I do, is I will check in on my advertising, but I don't make adjustments every day. And the reason why is just because if you had one bad day, maybe it was yesterday, there's no reason to overreact on that one day of data. There's so many variables that could have happened that made you go up or down. So I will typically check in every day and just look at my bids, look at my budget, see how they're spending. One thing that's really important is to see, are your campaign, are they capping throughout the day? So if you check in the morning, that's great, but you might want to check in a couple times throughout the day. So maybe run one around noon, one around the evening, maybe before you go to bed, to see if your budgets are hitting their limit. If you're constantly seeing that's happen and it has a great ACoS or profitability, then you may just want to consider increasing the budget a little bit. So that's one thing that I would recommend looking at, is your budget spend essentially throughout the day, but not necessarily making any big changes until you can see results from a bigger group of data, like a week or two even. One more thing actually, so you could actually do, depending on how much sales you're doing, it might be nice to look at your buyer seller messages and see if you have any. Those typically need to be responded to within 24 hours, I believe. So checking your buyer messages is great. Your account health, this is a good one. So you can actually just click in and see if there's anything that's happened to, right here, we have some listing policy violations or things that we need to check out. So this is always good that you can just access from your dashboard. And then, like I said, if you want to look at your advertising, you can always use Jungle Scout's ad analytics to look at this on a daily or weekly basis. So this is a really good tool to help you basically do what we were just mentioning.
Yeah, those are really good ones. Maybe an extra little tip there is that with any sort of business, you want to have systems in place that make what you are doing regularly easy. So I would actually save, I would come up with a system. For example, all of those pages that you mentioned, maybe it's like Campaign Manager, the Jungle Scout Sales Analytics dashboard, the buyer seller messaging portal. I would say, maybe in your browser, I would create a bookmarks folder and add all of them to that. And then you can just open that one folder up and you have all of those tabs open. If you're using Google Chrome, you can actually create like kind of a tab folder, and I would have a system in place. So it's like you've got easy access to those links. Maybe they're always open in your browser, or you can easily open them all. And it's like, okay, those are just all open, and I just look through each of these every day. But finding some sort of way to, turn it into a process and make your life easier is something I'd recommend too. Yeah.
Great question. All right, moving on. Next question. How often should I be optimizing my listing? And I actually see this just came in live as well. So thanks for asking that question live, and also the pre-submitted question. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. It really depends on your product, I'd say. Some products benefit from seasonal adjustment. So maybe your product sells better during graduation time or back to school season, and people are searching for keywords like back to school products or back to school, whatever the season is. That's when you need to identify through your sales over the past year. Or if you're just launching a new product, you can look at the market and how it typically sells and bobs and weaves throughout the year. And if you're seeing those high peaks and valleys, then you might want to go back and see, what were the search terms at that time, or what were the events happening at that time, and then changing your listing to match the user search intent. So that's one tip I'd recommend, and how often you should change your listing depending on your product. The other thing I would recommend doing is testing and iterating always. So you don't need to do this every week or every month even, but it doesn't hurt you to change your image, your main image. When testing it within Amazon's experiments, they have a whole kind of system in Seller Central that allows you to test your images. I believe also your A+ content can be tested. Yeah. And I believe even your title and maybe bullet points can be tested. So that's the other time I would recommend really optimizing your listing, is to test. And you're looking for things like click-through rate. Is that improving? Or you're looking for things like conversion rate. Those would be the two ones, click-through and conversion rate. You could also look at like impressions and clicks to see if what you're changing is actually having an impact in the search results. That's a little bit of a harder one to kind of understand if it's actually being attributed back to your listing changes. But I would still recommend testing all throughout the year.
Good answer. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Next question here. I need to send inventory into FBA and a 3PL. What's the cheapest way of doing a split shipment?
I need to read the question. I need to send inventory into FBA and a 3PL. What's the cheapest way of doing a split shipment?
They're probably going to send some to Amazon, some to a 3PL, because they either don't want to send it all into Amazon and accrue really expensive storage costs, or they actually just don't have the inventory limit available. So they're like, probably should I send it all to a 3PL and then send it to Amazon? Or should I just go half Amazon, half 3PL?
I mean, it's probably the first one. I would get quotes for both.
Okay, yeah.
Because you could do that. You could get from your freight forwarder or your supplier, whoever's doing your shipments from the factory. I would get quotes and say, how much would it cost to send 1,500 units and 1,500 units to these two different locations? And also, how much would it cost to send 3,000 units to this one location? And then within Seller Central, in the shipment plan, you can basically figure out how much it would cost to take 1,500 units from the 3PL location into Amazon. So you can actually assemble and get all of those quotes. My assumption would be that sending all of your units into a 3PL and then locally just getting Amazon to pick up half of them into an FBA warehouse, I'm assuming that would be probably cheaper, but the best thing to do is to get quotes for all of it, and then you'll know for sure.
Awesome. Great question. Next pre-submitted question here is, at what point should I order new inventory after my product goes live and starts selling? Yeah, so you're basically,
straight away.
If you have the funds available, straight away. And the reason why is, ideally, you don't go out of stock. Now, if you're just launching a new product and you do go out of stock, that's fine. I think that's a fear that a lot of sellers have that maybe prevents them from starting on Amazon, is selling out. And that should not be a fear that gets you started selling. In fact, if you only have enough inventory to last you one inventory run, and then you need that sales proceeds back to buy the inventory round two, that's completely fine. But if you do have more available, then right after you start selling consistently, so maybe if you see, last week, I've been selling about 5 units on average a day. Like now you're actually starting to see consistent sales, then you can start buying your inventory. Maybe if you're getting a sale here, next day you get 0, a couple more days you maybe get 0, and then you get like 5 one day. You could, but I would rather just wait until I see that sales consistently starting to roll and compound before I'm like, oh crap, I need to go out and order more inventory before I sell out. So that's just my experience with how I would do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think you covered it all. I don't have too much to add there other than the North Star is ideally not running out of stock, but it is very common when you are first starting out. You're generally putting most of the money that you have, if not all of it, into that first shipment, and you'll generally have to recoup most of that in order to help pay for the second run, which means inherently that you're likely going to run out of stock. So if you have the funds to not run out of stock, then great, but it's also fine if you do. You can like reclaim your rankings fairly quickly in most cases.
Awesome. All right, next pre-submitted question. What should my strategy be when I come out of being out of stock, or I come back from being out of stock? This happened to us, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing as when you launch a product. You've got a lot of different options that you can play with. The different components would be utilizing advertising, and you might be more aggressive than what you would typically be, but being a little more aggressive with advertising, you may pair that with coupons or just discounting your product price a little bit. Those are probably like the main things, I think. But essentially your goal is to get your sales velocity back up any way you can. And usually those components I mentioned are the way to do it.
Good question.
I don't know if you've got anything else to add there.
I think the summarizing what you said, it's almost like you're relaunching your product.
Yeah.
And if you have that mentality and you're okay with maybe in some cases losing a little bit of money in that first 2 weeks of advertising, that's okay. But then you'll eventually shift out of it and start making back your profit. But you're trying to relaunch your product essentially when you do out of stock.
And I will say that in my experience, at least, that process hasn't been as difficult as the initial launch. It's sort of like going to the gym. It's really hard the first time that you do it. But if you take a break and you go back to the gym, yes, you need to recover some lost ground, but kind of getting back to where you were, you've kind of got that muscle memory a little bit. And I feel like it's usually the case with Amazon is that, it's kind of like launching again, but usually it doesn't take as much as the initial launch to kind of get your rankings back.
Awesome. Great. Moving on to the next question here. I want to sell 2 products in the same category. Should I make them variations or on separate listings? I think maybe without knowing too much about this specific scenario, I would say it really just depends if the product is similar. So if it's in the same category, you can add it as a variation, but what you can't do is just add 2 completely different products that are in the same category on the same listing. There needs to be some sort of relation there. So a different color, a different size, maybe like a bundle or an add-on or something there. That's a great strategy to get people to, leave a review for 2 products on one listing. However, there is a strategy to be discussed, and it's a very interesting approach. I've seen a lot of sellers do this actually, is to separate their listings. And the reason why is because if you advertise on a keyword, let's say you're advertising pea pads, and you win the bid on that, you're only one of your products. So basically your one listing can appear in the search results. Whereas if you had 3 separate listings all bidding on that same term, you could essentially or potentially show up 3 times on that search results. And so a lot of bigger brands will do this to create a moat when someone types in a search term that like 5 out of like the 20 products are theirs. So that's a strategy to consider. However, I think if you're just getting started, you want those reviews. And so me personally, I would variate them. But just considering the other alternative is there are benefits to not having them on the variation as well.
Yeah. Cool. I think you covered it.
Yeah. Next question here is, how do you fake list a product just to check if there will be any issues before selling?
Yeah, the good news is you don't even need to complete listing it. You just need to go to pretty much like the very first step, which is go to Seller Central. I think it's like catalog, add products. And then you more or less go, selling a product not sold on Amazon. You type in the name of
the
product.
Yeah,
it does look different.
This is new. I just figured this out.
Oh,
so
okay.
You now have to type in something, and I think they're using AI probably. Do puppy pea pads, click search or enter, and then it's actually just like recommending what you should do. And then you can confirm it, or you
probably
can just
select other, right?
Yes, and this brings you back to the regular flow of, typing in what you need to do. And the best way of doing this is just like going back to your competitors and see what their category trees are, and then just copying that here. But yeah, sorry, you were saying something, but I think you're probably getting to
pretty much to get to this screen, I imagine. You just search for the category, and it'll either say that the category is unlocked or that it needs approval. And
just like this, actually, I think if I did this example last week. Oops, not that one. How do I get out of here? Okay, cool. You go to like collectibles and fine art, and then you'll see over here these collectible coins. If you just try to click into it, you'll see learn more, and it'll tell you basically like what needs to be done to get approved for this product. And actually, it's right here, an overview of categories. You select that, and I don't know why Amazon just doesn't bring you to this page initially. It's not opening. But then it will bring you to this page where by category here we can see collectible coins. It is gated, and you can see the guidelines right here. And so that will give you, basically this page will give you everything you need to know about selling in this category.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. Let me see where we left off real quick. All right. Awesome. All right, this next question is, how do I take photos of my product if my supplier is shipping them directly to Amazon FBA? So you don't have the product yet. How do you take photos?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. You essentially just get your supplier to send you 1 or 2 units. I usually get 2 or 3 units because I would probably say at least a couple of units. But if they're gonna go to the hassle of sending you a few units, I would get a few. Essentially, like I want one at least that I would take out of the packaging because I'm going to be taking all my photos, and then I would want another one where I maybe just don't touch the packaging at all and keep it in pristine condition. But usually I would get, maybe a few more just in case the packaging of one's a little bit damaged or whatever. I would like to just have a few up my sleeve, but essentially just ask your supplier to send you a few extras. You might be able to get away with, at least just to begin with, you most likely would have gotten a generic sample from the supplier before you chose that supplier. Now, your final version might be a little bit different, but you might be able to get away just for some initial photos with the sample that you first got, and just use that just very temporarily until you can get the supplier to send you some more of the final product. But
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good question. Well, a few more pre-submitted questions here, and we'll go to your live questions. But this next one is, can I put both the UPC and FNQ barcode on the product packaging? I would say no, only because Amazon just doesn't want that to happen, and that is just creating problems potentially. So you just want your FNQ barcode on there. It can go over top of the UPC barcode if you already have it on there. That's completely fine. But you just want to avoid Amazon scanning the incorrect barcode. And yeah, if you're selling outside of Amazon too, and so you want to use the UPC barcode, you can go down that route. We would always recommend using an FNQ barcode because it prevents what's called commingling inventory, where basically if someone else were to figure out how to get your product and send it to Amazon, there's no way of Amazon knowing who sent that inventory in. So I guess the simplest answer would be to have your FNQ over the UPC if that's the case.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, next question. What needs to be applied on the product and the shipping boxes to ensure that Amazon receives and accepts my products?
Cool. So when you're sending inventory in, I guess when you're going through the shipment process, there's, I think, 2 main options. You've got where you're sending in boxes, small parcel delivery. I think that's the term I was looking for. If you're going with small parcel delivery, when you set that up, you'll be given shipment labels. You'll get given a unique shipment label for each box. Yeah. So if a box contains 10 of your units, you put the 10 units in the box, or your supplier does, and then there's 1 shipping label per box. And with SPD, that's all you need. Then I believe with the other option, which is for larger shipments, which is less than truckload, basically it's going onto a truck. Typically with that, you need to have those boxes palletized. And when you have a pallet, then there's one additional label that you need. So all of the individual boxes still need their unique shipment, box labels on them, but then you'll also get pallet labels, and each pallet will have a unique label. And I think maybe you have to print out and put that one unique label maybe in multiple places on the pallet, if I remember right. And so ultimately you'll then have box labels and pallet labels. Did I get all that correct? I'm kind of going off memory there.
Yep. And I was just going to bring this up in case you wanted the slower kind of walkthrough of this. We have this video. Just search for the #1 way to ship your product to Amazon. And everything Lenny said will be actually more spelled out in a step-by-step follow-through. So I highly recommend checking out this video. That's going to give you all the information you need on which labels you need and how to attach them.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right, one more pre-submitted question, and then we'll get to you guys' live ones. So this one is, do you recommend creating a social media page for your company to market your products? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say yes if you have the means to. If you've got the time and the energy and you've exhausted optimizing your listing and doing everything that you can first to, essentially optimize your product on Amazon. If you've got a giant team, unlimited resources, then yes, do it from the start. There's so many different things that you can do in terms of creating content in all the different ways, social media, website, etc. And in 2024, that is a great strategy. But if you don't have a team, you don't, you're doing this part-time, then that's not where you want to start. You want to focus on doing all the things that you can on Amazon first. The one step that I would take is getting the social media handles and the domain names and kind of getting those digital assets, like purchasing them at the very beginning for whatever your brand name is. So I would at least capture those so that you own them. Then, if it's just you or you and one other person, you've got limited means, focus on Amazon first, optimizing your listing, getting good images, creating a video, learning to manage your advertising campaigns well. Do all of that, and then when you're twiddling your thumbs because you've got nothing else to do regularly, then I would start building out your content marketing and doing all of that. But I'm curious if you've got any differing thoughts or anything to add there.
Only the other thing I would add real quickly is I would personally, if you have a full-time job or even a part-time job and you're running this business on the side, you only have so many hours in the day. At the end of the day, the most impactful thing you can do is on the Amazon platform. And the reason I say that is because everything you do on Amazon is giving you closer to a sale. So when you advertise, that's going to be the most efficient way of spending your time or money even to acquire paid customers. And so if you don't have the time to do all these different things, spending it on Amazon, whether it's advertising or optimizing your listing, will give you the greatest ROI. If you do have the time, and it's also a long-term play, if you wanted to split your time up either way, is to create, anything off of Amazon, because over time, that compounding ROI will be worth it. It just won't be worth it right away. So me personally, I like to spend all my free time or all my extra time on my Amazon business in Amazon, and then over time start to adding into social media stuff. But a lot of people are different. They actually would do the complete opposite, and I think both are completely great approaches.
Great. I love it.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up your guys' pre-submitted questions from last week's video. Again, if you want to be brought into next week's video, make sure to leave your questions that we didn't answer today in the comment section of this video. Now, we are going to switch over to your live questions, so feel free to, guys, put your questions in here, and until we basically run out of time, we'll try to answer all of them. But again, if we don't get to it, just leave it in the comment section. We'll carry it over to next week's video.
Perfect.
So let's go through some of these questions here. Cool. Here's a good question here. Should we run PPC campaigns with only 4 top keywords without using 200 plus keywords? What strategy should we use for getting sales in few keywords? So maybe you just identified for some reason a couple keywords, but you see maybe through our videos or other content that you should have a huge list of keywords that you should advertise on. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I would typically do both. If you've identified the 4 top keywords, what you'll most likely find is that those are the top keywords because they get a lot of search volume, but they are, so they are very valuable, but they're also going to most likely be the most expensive ones to bid on. So you'll get the most value, but they're the most costly. Mm-hmm. I would typically, and this is what we actually do, is run those campaigns on your top keyword or top few keywords, but I would also run another campaign on other keywords as well, because you might be able to capture sales more profitably on other keywords. So essentially my answer would be I would do both. Yeah. And essentially what you want to do with advertising, it all comes down to testing. So you want to test all of these different things. What happens if I just advertise on the top keywords? What happens if I test these other keywords? What you will, probably like testing all of it and then seeing the results from both. And then it's just a matter of like how much you increase or decrease your budget. The campaigns that are working well, you increase the budget. The ones that aren't, you typically decrease the budget. So I would recommend doing multiple campaigns.
Couldn't agree more. I just get to another question. So how can we analyze our competitors' products or their PPC strategy essentially? Wanted to show you actually real quick how we do it, and that's by using a Jungle Scout tool called Rank Tracker. And so Rank Tracker is an awesome tool. You can find it under our keywords tabs here. And what it allows you to do is look at the keyword rankings of you and your competitors' products over time. And you can see here, you can do that actually from an organic perspective. So you can add in a bunch of keywords here, pull your keyword list that you created earlier in Jungle Scout, and you can see their organic ranking, but you can also see their sponsored ranking. And right here, the seller is not doing too much, or at least from the keywords that we have selected in this keyword bank here, which is just 10 at the moment. So what's really cool about this tool is you can come down here to the table. You can see, okay, let's sort by the search volume, and you can see, okay, they're really not ranking for any advertising keywords. You'd see sponsored rank, you'd see some numbers over here if there were anything. And so I guess this is a bad example of a competitor who's not really doing anything with advertising, but surely there's more from this list here that we could probably find that are doing better with advertising. In fact, if we just go to our product, let's see what's going on here. We can go sponsored rank. So we have some keywords here that, we're ranking 4, 7, 8, and so on. If you want to learn more about this tool, because there's way more to it than what we're able to share right now, head over to YouTube again and type in Rank Tracker in our search little box here and find this video right here. Lenny goes over the Rank Tracker tool in pretty good detail. So it's an awesome video just to get you more comfortable with the tool. But that's essentially what Rank Tracker will help you do, is uncover what your competitors are bidding on, and you can see where they're ranking, both organically and with advertising. And that's really powerful, because if you see them really high and you're really low, you might want to actually go back and see if what your bids are on that keyword, and make sure that you're kind of checking back every few weeks to see if you're gaining any leeway on them at all.
Love it.
Yeah. Do you have an Amazon wholesale course? So we do on our back on our YouTube channel. If you just type in wholesale, we have a few videos actually. One that we released not too long ago that will give you a lot of good information. Head over to YouTube on our channel and type in wholesale. You'll find a bunch of good content there.
Perfect.
All right. This next question. Is it okay to go with a product that has 1 or 2 clear dominators, so just a complete awesome competitor, but the rest of the sellers are still selling over $300 a month? So basically, like, you're in a category and there's like this dominating brand probably. What are your thoughts on jumping in to that category with them?
So that's kind of the scenario that we typically say, and I'm assuming you're referencing this, but we typically say don't go with that product if there's 1 or 2 dominating listings. But you're saying the rest are, they're dominating, but the rest of the sellers are still selling over $300 a month.
Right.
I guess I would say you can, but it's, there's a risk there, or there's increased risk. Like we say with all of the factors that we share with you, you don't have to do 100% of the things or like hit all of the criteria that we tell you. That's an ideal scenario. And in reality, you're not going to check off every single thing that we recommend, but you just have to figure out which things are okay to compromise on. So yeah, I would dig into it a little bit more. Let's see, I would, if you're seeing that the rest of those listings are getting on average over 300 sales per month, for one, I'd be curious like what the price point is. You would want that to be at least $20, $25, $30. Because if it's like a $10 product or a $15 product, then I would probably want more than 300 sales. I'd also be kind of looking at how many reviews do those have, because that's also sort of because I'm assuming the top products probably have thousands of reviews. I'm curious how many reviews the other products have. If they only have like 20, 30 or something like that, then that would be another sign to me that like, oh, this could be hard to grow in against these top competitors. I'd maybe also look at related keyword searches as well. I'd be curious to see, are people just searching for the type of product, or are a lot of people searching for the brand name of those top listings? Yeah, I don't know. Those are just like a few things that I would look at, and ultimately I would compare this product idea to others as well. That's one thing that I would definitely suggest is when you're doing product research, you want to have a short list of at least 3 to 5 products that you feel fairly confident could be good. And so I would weigh up the pros and cons of this particular idea against others and see, does this still feel like the best idea despite the 2 competitive products? I don't know. That was a rant of a few different things. Anything else to add there?
No, I thought that was all pretty well thought out. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Here, let's see. So this is a two-parter. I'm going to show both here. So he listed a product 2 days ago, and his product is active, but he's searching for it on Amazon, and it's not showing up anywhere. It's actually on page 30. So what should he do for getting it to go on the first page of Amazon? I would say, and we have some good content on this, and I'll show you here in a second what videos you should watch after this, is identify which keywords you really, really want to rank for. And that might sound obvious, like just look for the highest volume keywords, right? Whatever is most people are searching on Amazon, that's the one. That's typically not the case, especially when you first launch, because those keywords are super competitive. And that means the advertising PPC bid is going to be very expensive too. So what I would recommend doing is trying to find a few long tail keywords. And those are keywords that have at least 4 to 5, maybe even keywords in the phrase that really accurately describes your product. And the idea behind that is think of keywords that have extremely high shopper intent. A good example of that is if someone types in basketball stuff, they have no idea what they're looking for. They're just trying to find ideas for things because they like basketball. But let's say someone's actually looking for a basketball net, right? They need to replace their net because the last one broke. Actually, that's a horrible example. That's only 2 words. But maybe if you said basketball rebounder with a net, a couple of words there, and that's specifically what they're looking for, then that's a way better term to maybe prioritize and bid on. So what I would personally recommend doing to get on page 1 is to identify a few of those lower competitive long tail keywords and start bidding on a few of those and just really looking at your placement over time increase. Again, using Jungle Scout's rank tracker tool, which is a great way to see if you are improving over time.
Yeah, I guess like another example that comes to mind could be like yoga mat. Yoga mat would be insanely competitive and very, very hard to rank on. But it could be yoga mat for hot yoga or for Bikram yoga or for something that's a longer tail keyword that doesn't get as many searches as the main one, but it gets enough searches that and is easier. I mean, in the yoga space, that one would still be insanely competitive as well. But relative to the main keyword, it's easier to rank on and can still get you some sales. And so you're sort of like capturing these smaller keywords, and then as you start to do that, you start to get some organic sales on them, then you can start to go after the sort of big fish, like the main keywords.
Let me just show you real quick. If you're still watching, highly recommend checking out 2 videos. So type in on our channel, do this to find long tail keywords. So that will show you exactly where and how to find those long tail keywords I recommended. And then if you scroll down actually a little bit more, this is just on our video tab. We have another great video, a little more broad, but how to outrank your competitors. So this will show you kind of how to go up the ranks and get your product on page 1. So those 2 videos alone will be really helpful for you to watch, and you can find that on our video tab or by just searching those titles. Awesome, great questions. Let's see here. All right, Squid Gaming, thanks for joining us again. I always recognize you from your Barack Obama profile picture. So the question here is, how do I foolproof my product so that 6 months to a year down the line, consumers will still buy my product, even if there are way more competitors with improved products in my niche? That's a good question.
Well, yeah, I suppose like improving your product in the first place is the biggest thing to do is to try to find the strongest differentiator that you can.
Definitely.
Which, yeah, I know is a simplified answer, but that's ultimately it. I think it's like having a very differentiated and improved product, which, yes, someone else could end up doing the same thing, but that's just the reality. But I'd say differentiating your product. The other thing could be what we were talking about earlier, which is like building up off Amazon audiences. So creating content, social media channels and kind of building up content, followers, and kind of building up brand awareness for your brand off of Amazon. That's going to be a good way to kind of create a little bit of a moat around your business that's separate to Amazon. But to Jake's point earlier, at the end of the day, the best bang for your buck is still going to be on Amazon. But if you're really wanting to build a brand that's going to last in the long term, then doing the off Amazon stuff is also the way to go.
Those are two great points. And it's like, ideally you do both of those. You improve your product to where it's just always going to be unique in the marketplace. Even if a few competitors do copy you, that's fine. You're now in a separate category from everybody else who didn't innovate. So improvement potential, and then what Lenny said, content. If you can do both of those together, I think that's the magic formula to really foolproof your business for the future.
Yeah, and I would say that differentiating, a good sign, this sounds weird, but a good sign is that differentiating your product is hard. It's either expensive or you have to use two suppliers. Like in the past, I've used two different suppliers and had to get my product bundled together. It was a hassle, but I liked it because it meant if it was easy, then everyone would do it.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was hard and took more coordination and so forth just inherently means that less people are going to try copying that just because it's harder. So if you really want to differentiate and it feels hard, like you have to, I don't know, create a new mold and get a designer to help you figure out how to redesign this product, then that's probably a good sign that other people are less likely to try that just because it's got a higher barrier to entry.
Definitely. Great question.
Where are we at?
Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, this is a good one. In the extension, so in the Jungle Scout extension, why am I seeing listings that sell well monthly, so thousands of units a month, but the daily sales are really low? And at the same time, I see products selling under 200 a day, but sales around 10 bucks. So basically, and I've seen this before, where you're saying like the daily sales aren't adding up when you look at the monthly sales. So I wanted to show you this just as an example here, just on our listing. You can see monthly sales 356, daily sales 14.
I didn't know that math. Yeah.
And so I actually just did it a little bit ago. So if you times 14 times 30, so how many days are in a month, it'll give you like 400 something, like 420. Yeah, so 420. So it's not adding up. The reason why is because monthly sales is looking at the past 30 days. Daily sales is looking just at the previous, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the previous daily sales velocity. So like this could change tomorrow. And this could change too, but this is going to be more prone to changing because it's how much you're selling each day and it's just averaging the days out. Whereas months, there's just inherently more data to work with. So 30 days versus one. And so that's why that changes more often than this. So a lot of times if you see this example where you times 14, this is supposed to be, I guess, 420 if you times it by the amount of days in the year. That means we're actually
increasing.
We're increasing our sales, right? So that's a good indication that, I mean, just looking at that we're doing better recently than we have in the past, month typically.
Yeah, so there's like two different algorithms there or like calculations there where the monthly one is sort of like averaging across like more data, whereas the daily units, to your point, is more, is very recent, like right now in the present.
Yeah. Good question. Next question. Do you recommend Amazon Global Logistics and AWD? So Amazon, it's actually AWD, Amazon Warehouse and Distribution.
Yeah.
Would they have better prices?
Well, we're testing out at the moment. Well, at least the AWD. We haven't done Global Logistics yet, but we do want to test that out. So I don't know if you've heard anything, but at least from our experience, I don't know that we know if it's got better prices, but what has drawn us to it, other than just like testing these things out, is it seems like it's a little bit easier to use because you're, less contact between, stitching together different services and freight forwarders and so forth. Whereas kind of keeping it all within Amazon, it's kind of streamlining things, and it just seems like it could be a more efficient process. Certainly the AWD portion, which we have tried so far, has been really cool in the sense that we send all of our inventory there and it automatically sends the right amount into the FBA warehouses as we need it, and we don't have to worry about that. So it's felt a little bit less hands-on. So I think there's probably efficiencies there, but I don't know if we know about the cost savings or not, unless you have heard from other sellers or anything like that.
Yeah, it definitely depends on a lot of factors, but we're excited to try to give you guys our first-hand experience of if it was cheaper for us than our typical route of using our supplier's freight forwarder and having them basically go end-to-end for us. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen a variation of this question quite a bit, so I want to touch on it. How much should I spend per month on advertising? And specifically, if the product costs $50, but maybe we'll keep this more general because the cost of your product, there's probably some people out there that would say otherwise, but it doesn't matter too much in my experience on how much you actually spend. But what are your thoughts on like just a general, how much should you spend on advertising per month?
That's an interesting question because I think maybe like you, I've never looked at a relationship between or a formula where it's like off whatever your product costs times that by something. So I don't know. I think I said this earlier on, but typically from a lot of the products that I sell, I usually start out with maybe a couple of campaigns and usually about $30 each or $20 to $30 each per day. So I might be spending $50 to $60 per day at the beginning. And that's not that's not some fancy maths. That's just a number I've picked. I think, I don't know if it's changed, but I know that when you are setting up a campaign, I'm pretty sure Amazon recommends at least a daily budget of $30, I think. And so that's typically my starting point. Yeah, I mean, that's what I would do again today. If I was launching another product now, I'd probably start with a couple of campaigns at $30 each, watch them and monitor them, adjust them. And then, as they start to perform better and better, I would increase that budget. But that's what I would do. I keep it pretty simple. I don't have any fancy formulas beyond that, but I don't know if you have any advice.
I'll show you a fancy formula.
Okay.
So this is what I was going to share here. How I typically would run it is I just want to know what my break-even ACOS is. And so basically what we found, and I'll run through these numbers in a second, but if we're over 35% ACOS, we're actually losing money on advertising. And so I'm just going to spend as much as I can under this amount. Some campaigns might be over, some campaigns might be under, but as a whole, I'm trying to stay under when you just look at the total of your account. And so if you don't know how to do your break-even ACOS, it's really just as simple as understanding your sales price, your cost of goods sold, which you can find in Jungle Scout, your Amazon FBA costs, which you can find also in Jungle Scout or in Seller Central, your storage costs, which you can find, again, both in Jungle Scout or in Seller Central, and that gives you your pre-ad profit per sale. So basically, before ads, we're making $13. So that essentially will tell you how much you can spend on ads to be profitable. And what that turns into for us is 35% ACOS is our highest that we can achieve in order to be profitable. And so I kind of bring this up just to tell you or maybe show you that the amount you spend maybe doesn't matter as much as how profitable you are. So if you're spending $50 a month and you're profitable, great. If you're able to spend $500 a month and you're profitable, even better. You basically just want to spend as much money as you possibly can and still be profitable. And I know it's different for people that are already selling and they can kind of go back and look at their costs versus new sellers who are like, I don't know what all my costs are yet and I'm just launching. So it's a whole different question there. But I would say as much as you profitably can if you're not already launching. If you're launching, don't be afraid to lose a little bit of money in the beginning and go over your break-even ACOS.
Yeah, I guess if you're launching, I could see sort of a formula there where it's typically, if you want to rank on page 1 for a keyword, you need to be making sort of the average number of sales as everyone on that page. So let's say that people on that page are making on average 500 sales per month. Then the rule of thumb would be you need to be making 500 sales per month in order to give you a chance of ranking on that page as well. So if you have a sales goal of I need to hit 500 sales per month, you could then go, okay, if I'm spending $13 to get a sale, then now you can do the math and kind of go, well, I would need to do whatever that is. I would need to have a budget of at least, $13 times 500 in order to have a, in order to be able to, I would need to spend that much in my monthly budget in order to, potentially hit that 500 sales so that I can rank on the first page of results. Now, of course, it does depend on what your average ACOS is. So you would still need to kind of run that, for probably at least a week to kind of get a sense of like, this is what my average ACOS is. And then you could multiply that and figure out how much you would need to spend in order to get the number of sales that you're trying to get. I don't know if that makes sense, but that would be, one sort of formula if you're trying to hit a specific sales number.
Yeah, I love it. Another question here about a Jungle Scout tool. Can I add my own suppliers in the Jungle Scout supplier tracker? I think I can only add suppliers already in the existing database. So good question. I think this might change in the future, but right now there is a way to do it. It's a little bit of a bit of a workaround. So if you're adding a supplier here, to your point, you can really only add suppliers at the moment that are already in our database. Not all suppliers have elected to be included there. But what you can do is you can come over here and you can edit their add contact info, and you can give it a nickname. So right here, I can name it whatever. I can name it my supplier. And this is a good way of doing it. The reason why you'd want to do this, you can obviously add in more details here, is because this is a great place to store quotes. So if you're getting quotes from them, you can add it in here and have it just a great place to track it over time. You can also store any samples here as you're getting samples back from suppliers. You might want to take a picture of it and just mark down your notes in here. So anytime you order inventory, you can store it in here. And this is really helpful because when you want to go back and see what your cost of goods sold was, you can easily just come in here and be like, okay, how much did I spend? What's the total cost? What's the per unit cost? And you just have everything in here neatly organized. And so it is and you can also add notes here as well. So it is a bit of a workaround. We have to just essentially rename it, but you can technically still use the supplier tracker without it coming from the database itself.
Yeah. So just to reiterate your first step, you would just need to add any supplier, any random supplier, or it could be a related one, but add a supplier from supplier database, and then you update the nickname. Essentially, then the only thing that's not going to match your supplier is the name, but that sort of gets overwritten by the nickname. So it's mostly unique. There's just one field that's not going to be right, I guess.
Yeah, right here is where you would save that supplier and then rename it.
Yeah. Cool. Good question.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to some more live questions. Do I need a UPC barcode for FBM? So you're doing your own fulfillment, not sending into Amazon. Do you need a UPC barcode? Or as maybe just make this more general too, or an FNQ barcode?
Oh, yeah. I'm so used to saying you just need an FNQ barcode.
Yeah, I don't believe you need the FNQ barcode because that's only for Amazon warehouse workers to know.
Yeah.
The UPC barcode, I believe you still would. I believe you would still need that UPC barcode on there. That's going to help, for one, just like verify for the customer that this is your product, and no one's actually going to look that up. But if something were to happen, there's a badge there, essentially, a label there to link that product to you and your brand. So I believe you still need the UPC barcode.
Yeah, but if you're sending in inventory to both, then there's no harm in having your FNQ barcode on there.
Yeah.
So that you can just choose to either fulfill it yourself or send it into Amazon and the FNQ's already on there, assuming that you're getting it printed on there. Cool.
Next question. How can I fix my account that doesn't qualify? So maybe there's like an issue with setting up the account.
Oh.
Feel free to give us more context, because that is a tough question to answer, only because there could be so many reasons why the Seller Central account verification process just doesn't go through for you.
Yeah.
Could be maybe a document that you submitted for your identity. It could be something, oh gosh, it could be so many things. But typically Seller Central, that email back to you that says you didn't qualify should give you more information there. If it didn't for whatever reason, you can always open up a case. I believe you can still reach out to Amazon, not directly through Seller Central, but in some other way. I can't remember where to go there, but there is a way to still contact Amazon about your application. But you need to know specifically from Amazon why that is. Unfortunately, I don't think we could.
Yeah, it's hard to know without the more context there. Unfortunately,
yeah. Feel free to give us more context there.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions here?
Yeah, this is one that we actually answered before, but can you essentially do FBA and FBM from the same account? The answer is yes, absolutely. Amazon wants you to do that. They want you to have all your products, even different brands, under one account. So yeah, you could either create 2 different offers for one product. You could have an FBA offer that kind of gets prioritized, and then you have a fallback FBM offer. Maybe you have extra inventory at your house or at a storage facility somewhere. So whenever your FBA inventory were to go out of stock, you basically have like an emergency fund that sellers can still buy from you as long as you're able to fulfill it out. So you could do it that way, or you can constantly switch your fulfillment method from FBA to FBM. So that would just mean you have one offer instead of 2, and whatever you have at in stock at the time, you can switch from FBA to FBM pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Abdullah says that I want to do FBA for heavy items, and for FBM, I'll pick small items that are easy to pack and ship, which I think makes sense because typically it might be either small items or lower priced items that it might end up being potentially cheaper for you to fulfill rather than Amazon. So, I mean, I would check the price and see how much it would cost for Amazon to fulfill it and compare that to how much it would cost for you to fulfill it. But broadly speaking, that seems like it could be a good strategy.
Awesome. It's a popular question too that I recently actually found out more on, but
yeah, I think we answered this the other week.
Yeah, and it actually kind of blew my mind. I had to do more research on it, but can you change your product from generic to brand after some time? Unfortunately, no. I thought that used to be the case. Maybe it used to, but from recent findings within Amazon's own literature, it's unfortunately you're unable to. So you basically the strategy here is you need to think long term on this. If you just want to get started selling on Amazon and you don't want to get your brand name trademarked, that's completely fine. But just be aware that you will have to apply your product as a generic brand, and that locks you from ever changing it. That's highly unfortunate. But if you are able to get a trademark, then I would highly recommend doing that, because then you're good. You don't have to actually create a new listing. So that's the downside of starting generic. If you do want to add a brand at some point, you will have to create a whole new listing. And so I guess planning ahead of time is the biggest, advice. And I know that's really hard for a lot of people because it could be expensive getting a trademark. And unfortunately, at least at this time, Amazon just doesn't allow you to switch from generic to brand. So that is the only way to kind of to get that to happen.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's take a couple more questions before we wrap up today.
Yeah, and again, guys, if we aren't able to get to your questions, which first off, thanks for giving us so many questions that we could answer from, feel free to drop them in the comment section of this video once the video ends. And like I said earlier, we'll take those and we'll add them to our pre-submitted section of next week's live Q&A session. But yeah, thank you guys for being here and asking all these amazing questions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so this is a good one. So Amazon's not showing your brand name on the search results. So it's showing on your listing, but it's not showing in the search results. This is something that Amazon has been testing lately. I believe last year they started testing this. With some products, they're not showing the brand names on it in the search results. And that's just because I think there's some sort of like conversion test they're probably trying to figure out there of if somebody sees the brand name and it's just like a crazy spelling or something that just makes them lose trust, they're less likely to click and buy that product. So there's a lot of crazy brand names on Amazon where, especially in the United States marketplace, consumers are like, that's got to be like a knockoff product. That's got to be like an Alibaba product or whatever, AliExpress product. And so they lose trust. So I think that's the experiment going on, but it really just depends on your product and your category. Yeah, it's really random. Let's see here. I thought we had a few more. Yeah, so this is sort of a similar question that we answered earlier, but so you need to supply your supplier your FNQ barcode, but you don't have the images of your product. Is it possible to create a temporary listing just to get the FNQ barcode? Yeah, that's exactly what we recommend doing. Is once you are as early as you can getting your listing up on Amazon. The only thing you need to do to get that to happen is to buy a UPC barcode for $30. If you're just having one product or selling one product, you get that UPC barcode for $30, you create your Amazon listing, and then now you have an FNQ barcode that you could add to a label or print out and send to your supplier. So a dummy listing is completely fine. You can put anything in there just to be able to save it as a draft, and then that will be able to give you to a point to see your FNQ barcode.
Yeah, and specifically here they're asking like, do I need, or I don't have the product pictures, but you should be able to create a draft of that listing without the product pictures.
Yes.
So you can create that just to get your FNQ without product images. Or if it, for some reason, didn't make you need to, add an image, I would add a generic image of your product that you can swap out, because just creating your listing, until there's inventory in, it's not going to be live anywhere. So you could more or less do whatever you want on that listing just to get it created and get your FNQ without having your final images. You can definitely do that.
Yeah. All right, maybe we'll end on this question.
Great.
I opened a sole trader Amazon account, so I think like a sole proprietorship. And can I change this later to a privately owned business? So yeah, maybe you started out as an individual even, and then later down the line, you go get an LLC, and now you officially have a business. Can you update that setting in Seller Central? Yes, absolutely. Amazon will want you to do that because there's some tax stuff that needs to happen on the back end for them. So yeah, you can just go to your settings and simply just change it there. If you don't see that option or you're just confused, you can always reach out to Seller Central by opening up a case and just asking the question you asked us, and they'll be able to direct you and point you in the right spot. But yeah, you can always change. Yeah.
That's exactly what I did. When I first started out, I didn't want to, I wanted to invest all my money into my product, and I was trying to save as much money as I could to invest into my product. And so I didn't want to spend money on setting up a company and all of the expenses around that. So I set my account up as sort of an individual sole proprietor, and you enter in like a little tax interview. And then very simply, you can just go in, change that later on. You just select what type of business you are, and then you just go through another brief tax interview again, where you just answer a few questions about your business, and it's very straightforward. So yeah, you can absolutely do that.
Awesome.
Well, I guess with that, we'll wrap it up there for today.
Yeah.
Like Jake mentioned before, thank you so much for giving us all of your questions. We hope you've got some value from this. If you have, then let us know by giving us a thumbs up down below. If we haven't got to your question, just wait till this video has ended, and then just copy and paste your question into the comments, and we'll make sure to get to those next week. Yeah. But otherwise, thank you again. Happy selling. Have a great day. And we'll see you in the next video.
See you guys.
Take care, everyone.